אנחנו לומדים כעת מתוך שיעור תלמוד 10 הספירות עם הרבש, נקרא מתוך תלמוד 10
We are learning from the test lesson with Rabash. We will read from test volume 2, part 5. We've reached the inner light item 41. And before we go into the lesson, we will read item 41. This is in the inner light, the words of the Ari. The words of the Ari, item 41. Afterwards, it returned to being not Mati in Keter. And then it is Mati in Chokhmah. At that time, Binah was supposed to remain there in Chokhmah as in the beginning. But because of the light of Chesed in her place, she descends to be there with him. It is so because he desires mercy. And you already know that Binah is called he. When Binah descends in her place, Chesed does not need her. And he descends to his place and is called Mati in Chesed. Then the light, Gvura, ascends in Chesed. And this is called not Mati in Gvura. At that time, the vessel of Gvura turns her interior downward and gives the 5 lights below in Tiferet. This is called Mati in Tiferet. Let's enter the lesson.
Yes, so what's the difference between Gagalt and Rabash? He gives us a rule. If the light of Chesed is found in the vessel of Binah, it is called Dat. The name Dat, we've learned, means connection. Generally, Dat means when Zon ascend to Binah and request the filling of Chokhmah, this causes Binah to connect with Chokhmah, and that is called Dat. So the first root for there to be a lack of Chokhmah and for it to be found in Binah and to give it Chokhmah, whether there is or there is not, this was specifically in the Parzuf Ab, where there was a situation of no Chokhmah, when I say not expanding in Keter, which was not the case in the Parzuf of Galgalta. There was no such situation. Chokhmah was always there. It is not applicable to say that the Anpin would remain in Binah waiting for a coupling to draw Chokhmah. There was always Chokhmah there. Therefore, we learn that the light of Chesed in the vessel of Binah, which is the root of that for all the Parzuf of Atzilut, is drawn from which root? From the Parzuf Ab. An example I give you, and one more example. In the world of Atzilut, he says, Tiferet is called Tiferet. When Tiferet ascends above and demands Chokhmah, says in Atzilut, the matter of smallness and greatness applies, and it wants greatness. Then the Sefirot of Tiferet, called the essence of the Zeranpin, since from the perspective of lights we learn Chokhmah, Bina, Chokhmah, Bina, Zeranpin. Fine, well, Chokhmah is Chesed, Bina is Gvura, Zeranpin is Tiferet. When Zeranpin ascends and wants Chokhmah, from whom? from of Bina. This causes, since the world of Atzilut, we have learned that there the fixed state is face and posterior, that Bina serves only with Chasadim, not with Chokhmah. So now, Tiferet, which is the Anpin, and wants Chokhmah, causes Bina to join with Chokhmah, to receive Chokhmah for the sake of her son. So it causes the connection of Da'at. And on account of this, Tiferet is called connection. So of who am I speaking? Tiferet performed this action and now receives Chokhmah. Whereas before this, it did not need it. But it is not a different substance, the same substance, the same Tiferet, the same Zer Anpin, except there is here smallness and greatness, or infancy and maturity. Therefore, in smallness, it is called Tiferet. In greatness or maturity, it's called Dat. And from all that has been explained until now, you will understand that these three Sefirot, Chagat of the Anpin, are not considered the essence of the Anpin. But the phase of vessels regarded as Keter Chokhmah Bina, and in terms of lights, they are called Chokhmah Bina Da'at, as above. The five edges, Chagat Nehi, are precisely the five phases, Kachab, Za'anpin, and Malchut. Only when they are the phase of the light of Chasadim and the light of Vak, their names change to Chagat Netzachod. And the actual phase of Za'anpin begins from the perspective of vessels, from the fourth edge among the five Chasadim, called Netzach. For it corresponds to the fourth phase called Za'anpin. However, now the phase of Tiferet corresponds to the third phase called Bina. This is from the side of the vessels. And therefore, the lights of Chagat are also the phase of Gar, except that they begin from Chokhmah. They begin from Chokhmah for the reasons stated above. But they become the quality of vessels. Which vessels are they? The vessels of Gal. And therefore the lights of Chagat are also the phase of Gal, except that they begin from Chokhmah below for the reason stated above, for the reason of interchanging of lights. Therefore the light of Chesed, the light found in the vessel of Chesed, is regarded as the light of Chokhmah, of Vak. And the light of Gvura, the light found in the vessel of Gvura, is regarded as the light of Bina, of Vak. And the light of Tiferet, the light found in the vessel of Tiferet, is regarded as the same light of Chesed with respect to its clothing in the vessel of Bina. That is the phase of the light of Dat and the sun of Chokhmah Bina, which is the actual phase of the light of Vak. Which is not the case with the lights of Chesed and Gvura, which are considered the phase of illuminations of what is included from Chokhmah, and illuminations of what is included in Bina, that reached the light of Chesed by reason of inclusion, but are not the essence of the light of Chesed with respect to its own nature. And the reason is from the perspective of the relationship of the vessels, since Chesed and Gvura are originally from their source, in the phase of vessels of Keter and Chokhmah as above, and since this light of Chesed has never clothed in these vessels, and since the light of Chesed has never clothed in these vessels, the vessels of Keter and Chokhmah, therefore it does not clothe in the vessels of Chesed and Gvura either. Why? Because they are the vessels of Keter and Chokhmah. However, since it's clothed in the vessel of Bina, it does clothe there. Therefore, its place is found in the vessels of Vak. Where? In the vessel of Tiferet, which is in the place of Bina. Therefore, Tiferet is considered the main phase of the Partsuf of the Anpin and the goof of the tree. And the essence of the above light of Chesed within it is considered the shins of the tree. Once more. And therefore, Tiferet is considered the main phase of the Partsuf and the goof of the tree. The body of the Anpin is called a tree. And the essence of the light of Chesed, which light illuminates there, is considered the shins of the tree. And all the other Sefirot of Zat are considered its branches hanging upon it and Tiferet. He gave a small explanation. Why is the essence of Tiferet in the vessel of Binah? So he says, Chesed was never in Keter, never in Chokhmah. Only where is it found? In Binah. Therefore he names it below in Vak as well, that the light of Tiferet is found neither in Chesed nor in Gvurah, only in Tiferet of the vessel of Binah, just as it was in the general vessel of Binah. Therefore, Tiferet is called the essence, and he adds here the goof of the tree, the shins of the tree. The goof refers to Tiferet, shins of the tree refer to the light of the Anpin, and below them in Tiferet, they are only branches. That is what he says. So now we need to begin page 342, item 42. Item 42 begins. Afterwards, Chokhmah was refined once more. The records of Chokhmah, phase 3/2, ascended to Keter, and then it is not expanding. It is expanding in Keter, and then there was a state of not expanding in Chokhmah. Why? For the two ascend there together to Keter, Chokhmah and Binah. And since Binah has no Chokhmah, Chesed ascends once more to the vessel of Binah, so that it has at least a phase of he desires mercy, Chafetz Chesed, from the vessel of Binah, and it becomes not expanding in Chesed, for it ascends to the place of Binah. As at first, due to the two distances between them, since it has no Chokhmah, it ascends and receives at least a phase of he desires mercy from the vessel of Binah, and then it is expanding in Gvurah. Why? Chokhmah gave its in Gvurah Chesed gives the desire of Gvurah, Hasadim, and then not expanding in Tiferet, since there's no Chokhmah there. So the light of Tiferet ascends in Gvurah out of longing. Why suddenly out of longing? Then the vessel of Tiferet turns its face and gives the four lights in Netzach. This is called expanding in Netzach. Now the rule. Expanding in Keter, not expanding in Chokhmah, in Binah, and in Chesed. Expanding in Gvurah, not expanding in Tiferet, and expanding in Netzach. Now we shall see what he explains. It returned to being expanding in Keter, not expanding in Chokhmah and Binah, etc.
You already know that the coming of Chesed to its vessel makes it Mati in Keter. According to the rule, there is no giving of lights except face to face, as the Ari says above. The upper one needs to be in equivalence with the lower one. Hence, Bina, which is phase 2, that he wants to give the vessel of Chesed his light, must be refined from phase 2 to phase 1. And then the lights of Chokhmah Bina depart to Keter and cause there an upper coupling there on coarseness of phase 3. And I'll soon say what's missing here. At that time, the light mati to the keter in the level of chokhmah on phase 3, as in the beginning. Then, not mati in chokhmah bina. Why? Because the posterior of the vessel of keter stop and delay the illumination of Gal for the illumination of chokhmah. Because of that there's no chokhmah in keter, since it shines on the posterior of keter and not mati in chesed too, chokhmah. Since there are two vacant distances without light, which are chokhmah bina, since the light is not mati in chokhmah, you find that even the illumination of chokhmah in chesed stops from it. And chesed returns to its katnut. In that state, it needs its mother Bina once more to suckle the illumination of Gal from her by way of delighted in mercy. Thus, Chesed ascends to the Bina, his vessel turns its anterior downward, and the light of Gvua descends once more to the vessel of Gvua, and shines Chasadim there, and is Mati in Gvua. At that time, it is not Mati in Tiferet. Why? Since the posterior of Gvua, that she is now engaged in Chasadim, stopped and delayed the illumination of Gal of the light of Tiferet. For this reason, the light Tiferet rises to the vessel of Gvura, as it descended from the Gvura only by the force of the illumination of Gal, of the control of Chesed, the light of Chokhmah that would shine to the vessel of Chesed over Gvura. Now that the control of Gvura has come once more, the Gvura raises his light to her as in the beginning. At that time, the vessel of Tiferet turns its interior downward, for it must revoke the influence of its Gal, which was its interior previously, Chokhmah, and make its posterior, the phase of Chasadim, an interior. What does it mean, interior? Of bestowal. After that, it lowers the residue of the light in it to the Netzach, and this is called Mati in Netzach.
And the light?
Soon, Chasadim. Now, what's written here below? He said a rule that when I say expanding in Chesed, then it has to be expanding in Keter. Why? How can there be Mati expanding in Chesed? That Bina, which is phase 2, has to be phase 1 in equivalence with the vessel of Chesed. Therefore, the Bina rises. What about Chokhmah? When does Chokhmah ascend? It turns out that when does the Chokhmah ascend? Together with Bina or before the Bina?
Together.
So we are in page 308, 408, page, column 1, starting from. It turns out that when Bina bestowed the light of Chesed to the vessel of Chesed, Bina was refined to phase 1. That's simple. From here on, there was a whole order of gradual refinement here. How did it begin? First, Keter was refined from coarseness of phase 3 to the coarseness of phase 2. Then it is called Mati in Chokhmah and not Mati in Keter, at which time the light of Keter disappeared to the root, to its root, and gave phase 2 of coarseness to the vessel of Chokhmah. Then, when there is Chokhmah in the vessel of Chokhmah, then the vessel of Bina united with it into one, only because of the sons. Or he says, only because it connects from the Gauda, that we'll see later. And then phase 2 was also refined to phase 1. So, what does he think now? The second phase in the vessel of Chokhmah and in the vessel of Binah, refined to phase 1. At that time, the lights of the vessels of Chokhmah and Binah disappear to Keter. It follows from here that when did the vessel of Chokhmah and the vessel of Binah rose to Keter? When phase 2 was refined in the vessel of Binah, then also Binah was refined in what vessel of Chokhmah? What's the confusion here? We have what is left from before, what comes on the new degree. That's the confusion. When we begin to discuss in the beginning, I'm starting from the beginning. What was in the beginning? That there was Mati expanding in Keter. That's simple. The light would shine with the Ta'amim of Ab. It's called vessel of Keter, or the light of 4x3. And we also say that since there's no there's no 4 of coarseness, only 4 of clothing, so the light of Keter, which is phase 4, would shine over 4 of coarseness, and as long as there is no 4 of coarseness, it cannot shine Chokhmah on its degree, meaning that it can continue from above downwards, and therefore light of Chasadim shines there. So I know when I say expanding in Keter, it means the Ta'amim of Ab, where there was 4x3 shining there, Chasadim, not more. And after that, we learned the clash of the inner and surrounding lights, and that the 4x3 of Keter, the vessel of Keter, were refined. What's left? Gimel Bet, 3/2. So he says 3/2 is the vessel that belongs to whom? To the vessel of Chokhmah. But we need to remember what we've learned, that all the vessels that existed in Patzuf Ab, or on the contrary, that they were in the vessels of Galgalta, after the departure of the light, the empty vessels were made, and they moved to Patzuf Ab. Another thing we've learned, that the last phase disappears in Patzuf Galgalta. What does it mean the last phase is lost? It follows that it shined in Patzuf, that the Patzuf of Ta'amim shined in the Patzuf of Galgalta. There was Keter there. And what was there? The light of Keter in the vessel of Keter, light of Chokhmah in the vessel of Chokhmah. That's in terms of the Ta'amim, the flavors. If I detail it into 10 Sefirot, it turns out that the last phase disappears. So I can say regarding Patzuf Ta'amim that it is 1 Sefirah. And what Sefirot do we have there? Okay, so I'll say that when there was in the Ta'amim, there was Keter of Keter, and Chokhmah of Keter, Bina of Keter, 1. So what am I discussing? In terms of the last phase that disappears, with everything that was in the first expansion, 10 Sefirot, I can say that in each and every one, what was left is 4 of clothing. He's not going to scrutinize it, to detail it. When he says Keter, he means vessel of Keter. In Chokhmah, vessel of Chokhmah, meaning nekudot, dots. So what was there in Chokhmah?
נעבור לחלק הבא של השיעור, לימוד בין חברים.
We'll go to the next